Welcome to the third edition, the Babe Ruth edition, because Babe Ruth is number 3. So I think this is the greatest episode ever because Babe Ruth was the greatest baseball player of all time. So we have Conversations with Craig, episode 3. We've got Aaron Mansfield from Volleyball, John Mayer from Beach Volleyball, and Jason D'Amore. Did I pronounce that right? Close enough. From Men's Golf. From Men's Golf. So welcome them to our third edition, and we'll kind of start with the same question for each of our coaches. Kind of where were you when everything went down on that Thursday, and were you able to tell your team? And we'll start with the teams that were in season. So John, where were you kind of when that happened on Thursday?
Yeah, we had taken a shuttle to LAX, and we're in the airport, and we're heading out to Grand Canyon to play there. And on the TV, I'm kind of walking to our terminal, and I see Pac-12 ends their season, or ends postseason. I kind of saw it, I was like, that's weird. And then I'm texting with the GCU coach, is everything okay there? We good to make the trip? She's like, oh yeah, everything's fine here. The other teams are here. We're all set. Okay. And then we're kind of getting like more word of things maybe not going so good. But we want to go play volleyball. So we go get on the plane, and I'm on the plane and about to start reading a book. And for some, of course, probably just out of habit, I check my phone, and the GCU coach texts me, have you guys left yet? I'm like, no, why? And I thought the doors had already closed. So I just got word, everything's shut down. Arizona's, shut down all sports. And so I just always, what do I do? I wasn't sure. Is this for sure confirmed? I'm going, this is kind of an outside source. I'm going to end this trip. But then just decided we better get out of here. And luckily they hadn't closed the door. The flight attendant let us all get up and leave. And we were kind of in the airport trying to figure out what was next. It was yeah, we were all bummed and crushed and didn't know what to do.
And Jason, what about you? Were obviously team that on that Thursday.
Yeah, it's kind of even looking back on it now, kind of a surreal experience. We had finished a tournament down in San Diego 2 days prior, and it was over spring break. We were on a trip down in San Diego for spring break for a few days, and we were coming back to campus that day. And you'd seen a lot of things over the last 24 hours with the NBA shutting down, and everyone's eyes were kind of tied to there, and we kind of kept getting updates. We're driving back from San Diego, and we're getting updates along the way of what's going on and what's still alive and what's not. And we had literally pulled into the parking lot at LMU, and then I turn off the engine and I get a notification on my phone. The NCAA has canceled all championships for spring sports, and both of the seniors on our team are sitting right behind me, and they had kind of both, I hadn't said anything, and they're both getting to get out of the van, and they said, Coach, thanks so much for this week. We'll see you after spring break. And I said, guys, if you have a second, I just got some updates, and I gave them the news that things had been canceled for the spring, and just the look on their faces was something we won't forget for sure. They couldn't believe that in the snap of a finger everything was just over like that, and obviously a lot of emotions running through them and stuff like that. But it was crazy just how quickly everything had happened. We went from this thing that kind of seemed like we were untouchable and that it couldn't be reality, and then to the fact that it happened so quick and everyone's emotions just going 100 different directions.
Yeah, I can relate actually to both those stories. So I was that day, as we were doing a coaching search for men's basketball. So I actually that morning had boarded a plane very early at I don't even know, 5 o'clock or very, very early, to go watch a conference basketball tournament, scout a potential coach. And so I'm in the air as all these tournaments are getting canceled, including the one I'm going to, by the way. So I now land in undisclosed location, and I just went to the hotel and stayed there because everything was transpiring at such a rapid pace, and I didn't feel like I could really be on the phone or do anything and make decisions while in the air. So I ended up staying at a weird day all by myself in a hotel room. So it was fascinating to you obviously aren't in the season, but you are able to practice in the spring. Did you have practice that day or anything going on, and how did you inform your team?
Well, we were, our players were on spring break, and we do have a couple indoor that played that John mentioned, and I actually was going to step in and help coach the beach for a couple weeks while Betsy was going to go play some Olympic qualification tournament. So I was going to fly out to Grand Canyon the next day to help coach. Obviously, when John got the news, he let me know and canceled all my stuff. But I just first I feel for the coaches that are in season. I can't imagine looking my players in the eyes during the most important time of the year, which is a time to get to compete. And for the players, all of our indoor players were kind of at home or on vacation during spring break. And so when we got word that beach volleyball season was over and the competition aspect was over, the conversation, do they even come back to campus? Are we even going to practice? What does the spring look like? And, obviously things really progressed. I think the next 2 or 3 days after that with the travel ban and all those things, initially when we got the word that day, I remember having a conversation with each one of my players, and they were all on board to come back, even just with the risk of, at that point of, potentially getting sick, or there was just a lot of uncertainty, but our girls had put they were willing to kind of take the risk at that point. And then obviously as things spiraled, it was, much safer for them to stay at home. And so for me, the challenge was, I think the challenge that we're all going through today is you're not around your players. You have to try to connect with them on the phone, FaceTime, make sure they're in a safe place, and then make the best decision for them of where they needed to be. And we decided pretty quickly that the best decision for them was to remain at home. So, again, we're in a different boat because we're not in season, but it's been a challenge for sure.
Aaron, maybe let me ask you this. Everything was happening so quickly, and it was frustrating at the time. Information would come out, you'd send it out to people or notify people, and right after you did that, maybe you got through your phone tree, yeah. And by the end of that, or texted, that had changed because everything was rapidly changing and closing and shutting down. Yeah. How did you kind of manage that aspect of this whole dilemma?
It was really challenging. Obviously, I'm not only talking to my players, but my players' parents too, because I had to make travel plans, and I have good relationships with my players' parents, and so it's kind of like this multifaceted, having a lot of conversations. And what I did is I just tried to err on the conservative side with everything, and I acknowledge that which was great, and I appreciate that. It shows their commitment. But I kept on saying, hold off until we get more information. And, as you can imagine, certain sets of parents were really, really for, and so that fear kind of drove them to say, hey, I think it's best to, keep my daughter at home. And obviously I totally respected that. I mean, at that point, I didn't know what an underreaction was, an overreaction was, what a proper reaction was, because it was, as you said, Craig, so many things were happening in real time and getting all this information. And so anytime I received information that I thought was relevant, I would pass it along and then just continue to have conversations. But I'd say, I was on the phone with 10 or 15 different people different days or 4 days in a row trying to figure out, what the next plan of action was. But I mean, it was a big challenge.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it was very, very difficult and I think at first people were a little skeptical of, are you telling me the full story here? But in reality, you were telling them what you knew at the time, and that could change obviously pretty rapid. I think the most overused term during all of this has been, it is a fluid situation. That was so many people just kept saying.
Yeah, to your point, I during that time, I was getting obviously a lot of questions from parents. It was one of the frustrating. I try to be as solution oriented in my life, and especially with coaching, and not just harping on the problem, but what are we going to do, and what's the next step? And I think that was the frustrating part, is they were asking me a lot of questions that I just didn't have answers to, and I didn't know what the best solution was. And so yeah, that was a big challenge for me.
That's a good segue to John. For those that don't know, John's team was ranked number 8 in the country this year. There are only 8 teams in the country that make the NCAA tournament in beach volleyball at this point. And in preseason, number 1 in the WCC to win the WCC this year, and had just started to really hit the stride. You had everybody back, and everybody was starting to play really well. Obviously, you're going to Grand Canyon. How do you pick that up now? And when you have some disappointed team members that lost out on an opportunity, not just to finish out their season, but perhaps to do something very special, how do you reflect on that and grow from that?
Yeah, not easily. Mainly just try to be there for our players and tell them this is hard, and I'm sorry that they have to experience this, and just the helplessness of like, there's nothing I can do. And normally I feel like I can, do things for them and be there for them to make us get to do the things we want to do, but I couldn't, other than just communicate with them and talk with them. But I think the benefits of that things were going good, and we had our last day of the year, we had won 3 big matches, and was that it was going to allow everyone to have a year back and seniors to be able to come back. All our players felt like they wanted to, and they want to, and they were on a mission to do something. They wanted to be the first LMU team to make it to Gulf. They wanted to, so all of them are like, yeah, I'm coming back, once they got that news. So I think that's the benefit of it. Maybe if things aren't going so good, they're like, yeah, let's get into the working world. Let's go do something different. But our girls seem like they're really hungry, and they want to get back after it as soon as that's the one silver lining, I think.
Yeah, and that is a silver lining. I'm very thankful that the NCAA, which is really, I think, for those that don't understand, the NCAA is a member of schools, and I'm thankful that the members made that decision to allow spring sports to be eligible, especially the seniors, to have another shot at it if they can. And obviously, there's a lot of hurdles to overcome with that, and we'll figure that out here institutionally in terms of what we're able to do and how we're able to do it for everybody. But I think it does pose some interesting roster challenges going forward, because it basically is like a redshirt year for every student athlete that competed. Jason, we've had a few conversations about that. How are you looking at that from a roster management standpoint going forward with, anyone can redshirt?
Yeah, it's a really interesting, and I think the mindset we're trying to look at this from is not only the coaching perspective, but also the student athlete perspective of what they're feeling and what they're, going through, and understanding that this is going to have a trickle down effect for, many years to come. This isn't just a knee-jerk reaction for this one, senior class and whatnot. We have a lot of student athletes that I think, kind of mirroring what John said, coming out of this time, you have to go through some sort of period, obviously, where you're trying to understand, be willing to accept that what has happened, and you got to figure out a way to move forward and become motivated and have something to look forward to. But it's going to be a challenge for sure. I mean, we've already had conversations with recruits about how scholarships could look, how roster sizes could look. With the guys on the team, we're having conversations about their plans moving forward, and letting them know what could be available, the timelines that we would need to know, where their mind is thinking about going, and where potentially their decisions may lie, with whether it's graduate school or if after 4 years they feel like they're ready to move on and graduate and move to the next phase of life. For golf, it's a little bit different as well, in the sense that I think every student athlete that has this year of eligibility given back to them wants to take advantage of it, or feels somewhat validated that that's what they deserve. But we have, going through conference championship first round, that's 11 events a year for us, and we competed in 7 this year before the season was canceled. So, in time, it'll be interesting to see kind of how these effects continue to ripple throughout the different classes. But it's going to be a challenge for sure. It's a lot more management of, kind of the roster size in particular is huge, because scholarship is one thing and playing opportunity is another. And, you might be able to set up a situation where everyone can figure out a way to make it work with scholarship, but we only travel 5 guys. And if we end up having 13, 14 on the roster, you get to a place where more than 50% of your team is staying at home when you're on the road, it becomes the student athlete experience starts to diminish a little bit as well. So definitely going to be a lot more attention, a lot just care as far as who we're bringing on and who's staying. And we want to give every student athlete the opportunity to take advantage of that extra year. Just trying to give them some perspective on all the different things to weigh and do it in the timeline that fits them best.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, and I think from an administrative standpoint, there are a lot of other things that come with increased roster sizes. The spring sports here generally are tough on staff because of the training staff, academic staff, and even the marketing communications. There's a lot of spring sports here, and so adding additional roster spots does take time for the strength and going forward. So there's a lot of unforeseen circumstances as a result of this that we'll figure out. But I think it is a challenge, and hopefully we're able to have people take advantage of it. Speaking of taking advantage of, Aaron, your team are all Instagram stars on the strength and conditioning Instagram. They are just crushing these workouts that our strength and conditioning established one. So congratulations to them on that. But how have you been able to kind of keep in touch with your team throughout this time as they're scattered all over the country?
Well, thanks to my assistants who are technologically, and I'm not, the same thing a lot of coaches are doing. We're using Zoom sessions a lot, FaceTime. It's usually, call somebody instead of texting them, and that's kind of the more personal way to do things. And now it seems like society, people are taking a step even further of using things to where you can see people's faces because we don't have this face-to-face interaction every single day. So this past week we had we put them into small groups and had 3 small group discussion sessions on a topic. I also met with the class that's going to be seniors next year. We're reading a book called Legacy, and we're kind of going through sections of that. And then we had a big group session where we just kind of connected and talked about, what the situation is like. And but one of the things we talked about is, what are you doing every single day to stay active? And I think it was cool to hear all the responses be really similar in the sense of they watched the Instagram story that Coach D. And another thing that we did is we put them into partners, and through those partners, you text them things that you're grateful for every single day, and then they also are sending videos to each other of them doing the workouts. And so we have a very close-knit group. I think a lot of teams on our campus do, but they're trying to find ways to stay connected with each other too, not just the coaching staff. And we all got to be creative. And so because this is not my wheelhouse, and I wasn't expected to be in this situation as a coach, but we bounced around some ideas of how we can stay connected and how often we should do that, how often we want to do that, and why it's important. And seemed to week of it. We're going to do some things differently next week, just based on the feedback that we've gotten from our players of some things that they liked and some things that can improve. And, we'll do what we can to stay connected.
John, you've done a great job of recruiting, obviously, and trying to piece together a team each year based on the fact that you do get a lot of transfers and or graduate transfers that come in. Now there's a capability to the end of May to have that kind of in-person or campus visit and everything else. How do you recruit during this time period and get creative and try to stay in touch?
Yeah, if you have an answer, let me know. But I mean, probably the same stuff. People are still emailing a lot and keeping you updated with what they're doing, and I'm able to do that. People are using WhatsApp a lot, so I'll have calls and able to chat with them and talk about what we're doing, where we're heading. And, I think there's still a lot of excitement about our program, even, during this time, and we can share all that with recruits. So yeah, I think it's just continuing to build, making sure we're sharing it in all the ways that Thad would approve. So we're making sure we do that. But yeah, I think it's just staying connected digitally and having those, like Aaron said, taking advantage of, they can have some sort of face-to-face interaction so they can, get to know you more. So that's what we're trying so far, but I'm sure Jason and Aaron have even better ideas.
Well, one of the unintentional things here, the reason we tape this is so that we don't commit any recruiting violations while we're talking about recruiting. But and we actually, in the first episode, we did have to edit some things out because we had some unintentional chatter of certain things that we shouldn't be talking about a certain potential student athlete. So
yeah, and I was actually going to build off Aaron's. I know Aaron does it too, but all of our meetings with our teams, they're all optional. Our teams are. Yeah,
there you go. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
A dead period, and we say it's all optional meetings.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. For those that don't know, I'll give a quick plug for John. John has an outstanding podcast on coaching, and it's called Coach Your Brains Out. And he puts together, have some great content on podcasts. So if you haven't done that, he also has written a book, which was the #1 selling book in volleyball on Amazon. So also check that out.
I think it was the only volleyball book, but yeah.
You know what? I have to plug it that way, but you are correct. I think it might have been the only volleyball book released that week, but it still was #1. So
no one beat it.
It's a good thing. Exactly. Jason, what are you looking forward to when you're able to, whatever that new normal is, what are you looking forward to with your team the most?
It's, I think obviously John's in a similar boat, having a sport outdoors, and I know Aaron's indoor, but they're still, traveling and stuff. Biggest thing for our guys has just been being able to get outside in the sunshine. So much of our job and our time spent with the guys is 5-6 hours a day in sunlight and being outdoors and feeling, when we talk to the guys week by week, that's the thing that we're hearing the most is like, gosh, there's just so much time in my day where I'm in this place that I feel so comfortable and so excited to go out and play golf and take, but I think, listen, you can come out of this period that we're in with it's an incredible opportunity to grow and get a great perspective on life and what it is that we're really grateful for. The things that, every day we may take for granted, that once it's stripped from you, you really realize how strong that love affair is with your sport and with your craft, and having the ability to understand that and then build on that to use it as some fuel and fire going forward and create that to continue to grow. Looking forward to the most, and we're definitely starting to cultivate that at the moment, but that ability to just be outside in nature, and it's a big part of what we do on a daily basis. So I know in some of our guys are the places that but obviously here in LA and in California, there's a pretty strong effort to keep everyone inside with the way the virus has been. So that's, I'd say without a doubt, that's the resounding thing we hear from everybody. And I know even myself, if I'm up with them every day, I'm able to stand behind them and watch them hit incredible shots day in and day out.
Aaron, is there skill development that you can do? Golf, obviously you can go outside and even if you want to work in your short game, you can do those kind of things. Are there things you can do? I've seen volleyball videos where there's people playing pepper with their parents or with people in their house. I mean, what is it that you can do from a volleyball perspective to work on skills during this time?
I think going outside and peppering and touching the ball is probably more just to kind of keep you sane. Just the way that I have a basic understanding of just some motor learning principles. There's not a whole lot of things you're going to to how you actually play the game, which is challenging because it is a sport where having a net and the same size court and other people to play is kind of a necessity as far as the actual game. So like I said, you can go out and juggle the ball with your hands and your head and your shoulders in some of the videos that we see. But I think, like I said, it's more just to kind of touch the ball and do almost like a physical activity rather than acquire skill. And I think that's one of the big challenges for us is, this spring season was about you're able to make it about your own team when you're in the off season. When you're in season, it's you're doing things that are going to get play two different opponents every single week. So we're very in tune to how we're going to attack our opponents and what we're going to need to do defensively. And there's a lot of moving pieces. And the spring is just about skill acquisition, about from the analytics from the fall, and really specifically hitting these points of emphasis that are going to help hopefully correlate to more wins next season. And we had it mapped out pretty specifically of what we needed to get better at. And we had 5 major things we wanted to accomplish in the spring. And now if we're not able to get back in the gym until August, the challenging part for me is I need to go back to the numbers and the analytics and take those 5 things and probably narrow 2 or 3. And so from home, when I look at those 5 things, when I look at the numbers and I look at the analytics, maybe other volleyball coaches out there have other solutions, but it's hard for me to think of things that they're able to do that's going to us getting better at those things, both individually and as a team. And so not to be a defeatist about it, but, there's just not a whole lot that in my mind, I think that they can do in their homes to acquire. Important thing. It's something that we were going to do in the spring as well, but now it's at the forefront because it's really all that we can do. It's we share stories with one another. We we discuss topics, we educate, we do all these things, and it's mainly because we can't. So it's a challenge.
No, you're exactly right. I think it is a challenge for everyone, and that's the beauty of this. I think coaches in general always are worried about some over their program. That's why the rule book is as thick as it is, because people are trying to gain a competitive advantage in recruiting or in the playing season or whatever it might be. That's why there are restrictions in the hours per week that a student athlete can participate in their particular sport.
And I'd say the only conclusion that I've come to about it is as far as what you can do on your own is, we're a program where we use visualization and hopefully creating some neural pathways of creating skill just through your mind and seeing yourself of how you want to play the game and what that looks like. And, watching video can be a really good component of that. All of our girls have access to all of their matches from this past season. I'm still trying to figure out, within compliance and THAD, what communication that we're able to have with our players about that. But, besides trying visualization or watching video, the actual action of acquiring skill is the challenge that we face right now. But still doesn't mean that we can't point things out that are the way we want to play the game through video. And like I said, through things like visualization. Those are the only solutions that I've come up with so far, but I'm open to learning more.
And Aaron is one of our most positive coaches. You can see how he really uses analytics development, and obviously this is hampering that a little bit, especially in a key time. But always is in contact with his team and maintaining such a positive attitude with them, which I think goes along. Go into that boat in terms of having a real growth mindset with everything. How do you keep your student athletes' mental well-being up during a time that is, I think, difficult for everyone? I mean, let's face it, this is unprecedented. How do you try to maintain their mental stability during a difficult time?
Yeah, it's really hard, especially, we have athletes in Europe and athletes all over the country. So not being able to be one-on-one with them is a big first step. Like, this is the first time I've experienced this. It's the first time for you guys. Anytime we do something for a first time, it's really scary. There's lots of unknowns, and we can draw on what we've learned from sport. You guys have, it's hard. It's confusing. We don't know what's going to happen. We know if we sit in it and we take on some adversity, we're going to get stronger. And adversity, what is it? If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And that's how we're looking at adversity. We're going to grow from it and we're going to learn from it. So I think it's not, my mindset is I want to just fast forward to the end. I want this to be over and let's get back to volleyball. But just to remind myself and to remind my athletes, there's lots that can be gained. There's lots we can do today to learn from this experience. And the higher level we do it, the more we can be there for each other, for the people we love. And then when we come out of this, we'll be even more grateful. We'll probably be a little tougher, and we'll get to get back. So, I mean, it's a hard time, and I don't know the answers, but I think it's just good to share that as a leader, saying like, I'm going through the same stuff and I'm trying to figure it out. And,
No, it's great perspective on things, because everybody is experiencing this for the first time, and there is no playbook in terms of how to handle these type of situations. Well, we've talked about a lot of different things. I'll kind of kick it around one last time for everybody, maybe just to share any insight into what's going on, and just a message for the, I think, growing audience that we have of, we probably had 10 people the first one, maybe 7. This one is probably going to trend about 32 people. So I think we're in pretty good shape, but it could be millions. Who knows? I mean, this could really take off especially when people go through the archives, when we get to like episode 7 or so. So with that being said, and John, closing thoughts for all the fans out there.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing to, especially, for the fans to understand, that I think all of us as coaches and just the athletic department at LMU in general, and listening to what John and Aaron are doing with their team and staying in touch, and the growth and perspective that they're able to give their student athletes is massive. But for the student athletes in LMU, I mean, we've been doing this our whole lives, of training through adversity and new challenges and learning at different levels and having obstacles in our way that we have to find a way to get through and get around. But I think to John's point of what he just mentioned, that, you have to acknowledge and accept what's going on. It's not necessarily something we can just push to the side, but that we have to together. It's all perspective, and that's a word that's thrown around a lot, but understanding what that word means and how you can use this time to grow is really the biggest thing. There's got to be something to keep you getting out of bed, and while still acknowledging that you're going through a tough time, but you are going to beat it. There will be an end to it, and we're just going to be better when we're coming out the other side.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, John and Jason hit a lot of good points. I'd say that just remembering that this is temporary, and I like a lot of what both these guys have said, but with John saying that he wants to forward, I find myself doing the same. One, fast forward, because I really miss being around my team and being around my group and my coaches and all those things. It's certainly nothing that I took for granted. But when it is stripped away from you, to Jason's point, for what I get to do and who I get to do it with is as high as it's ever been. And just to remind myself that, like I said, this is a temporary time. And the other thing is, we always talk about within our program of just trying to be where our feet are, and the idea that being present is a skill, and that doesn't always just mean things like meditation, but just remind yourself of, what can you do just today? And I think obviously trying to create some healthy routines for yourself, whether that's nutrition or exercising or getting outside, getting off your phone is a really good thing right now, because there is a lot of rabbit holes that you can go down that I think cause more anxiety and more worry. So I'd say while, everybody's kind of cooped up in their own house, around interactions are really important. And I just, I miss LMU. I miss our whole athletic community. And I can't wait to get our incomers in and just when all this is said and done. But I just hope that everybody is healthy and trying to find ways to stay sane and stay productive during this time. It's tough, but we can do it.
Aaron, one thing you mentioned that I think is key, John mentioned as well, about like feeling like you want to fast forward through it. One conversation we've had quite often is understanding that like that's a normal feeling to have. It's okay to have it. You don't have to deflect it and think that it's the right feeling. Yeah. But understanding, taking that and using that to gain the perspective of that it's temporary and it's going to take time, but you have a community and a village to rely on. That was a big thing for me in the beginning as well, as I tried to shoo it away. You know, and you got to be an example, but it's something you got to accept for sure, and it's okay to feel that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I agree. You guys nailed it. And I think, Jason, to your point of leader playing the same thing they are, I think that just helps you connect with everyone, and then they can feel okay about what they're feeling. I think what you guys hit on, like having routines, most of our tendencies is to do the easiest thing possible, maybe just sit there and watch Netflix and be on your phone all day. So that's probably our default. So I think it's important, especially athletes and students, they thrive on having a routine. So setting up each day, like, you know, this time I'm going to wait and I'm going to then, and just having that all organized ahead of time, I think can go a long way. And then, I mean, we preach it all the time, but just focusing on the controllables, this is a great time to live it. What's within your control? Where are you putting your focus? And then I think really pushing yourself to find ways to grow, and maybe finding one thing you're going to do each day to make yourself a little bit uncomfortable, even if has nothing to do with your sport, like, you know, art or sewing or whatever. It's something that pushes your brain to grow, because I think as humans, we thrive when we're growing, but our default is not to get in that zone of uncomfort and discomfort. So you have to do something to and that just finding one little thing that's going to make you a little uncomfortable and help your brain be challenged each day is, I think, a really healthy way to continue to not get through this, but to maximize this and make the most of this. Back to normal, and I think we're all going to appreciate normal in a new way. When things are back to that way, we're going to be ready to dominate.
No, you're right. I mean, I've taken advantage of this time. I now can speak 7 different languages.
Nice.
So, I mean, I don't know what you guys are doing with your time, but that's where I'm at right now.
I'm way behind. I've only got like 3 chords on the guitar, so
that's good. Bonus question: the coaches have established WhatsApp. I believe that's where you guys are all chatting. Who is the funniest coach on WhatsApp, where they just chime in and you're like, okay, they're nailing this right now? Who is it? Or who thinks maybe they're not?
That's
you can go one of 2 ways.
If I want to be the one to step in here, maybe I let the other guy shoot at this first.
Oh, it's Scott. Isn't it Scott? Come on.
Scott, what about
it's interesting from my perspective, and I think there's Scott Guerrero definitely is the one that'll throw a one-liner in there here and there, and you can just sense him getting a kick out of what he's posting before he even puts it up. But
sure,
sometimes, you know, and I think it just in general, we all enjoy team from women's tennis, and the photos he takes just in general on social media, and is different. He's got a different lens view than most of us. On
Augustine is unintentional comedy, and it's not even. It's just fun to be around him, because it's not even intentional sometimes, but he cracks me up. He cracked me up on this call the other day.
Yeah, he's something else. He is. He's everyone else is seeing it, you know, clear as day.
No, he's great. He's great. Well, hey, thank you everybody for taking time out of your day. Really appreciate you joining me on around coaches again. One of the most enjoyable parts of this job is just talking to you about your season and where you're at when I see you on campus or see you at Gersten or over in Levy. So appreciate you. Episode 3, the Babe Ruth episode, the greatest episode we've put out thus far. So thank you for joining us on Conversations with Craig.